One of my interests these days is adaptive leadership, and I'm doing a little workshop on it after the keynote today. And in adaptive leadership, they talk about two different kinds of challenges. There's challenges that require a technical solution, and there's challenges that require a solution where we need to adapt. We need to change our own behavior, and not just change our own behavior, but also figure out what the questions are. We can't quite understand what's going on. Global climate change is one of those things, I think, that we see something happening. There's responses that are technical fixes, like driving a hybrid, which I do. That's a technical fix. We know, everybody driving hybrids is not going to take care of the problem. So that's a way that we can respond, which is technical. The idea is that we invite people into a conversation where we discern together what's going on. How might we live in the world in a way that would enable our children's children's children to have a healthy world in which to live? What would that look like? How would us living in the world differently approach that? So that's an adaptive way, and really together coming up with a solution. So, and what happens is people tend to try to put technical fixes on these adaptive challenges, or they do what they call work avoidance, where they do something that, one example is, well, there's the denial, of course, and we see a lot of things up there about denial. But the whole thing with the Tea Party has brought up some issues that they say are issues, and that's their work avoidance of really dealing with the debt, let's say. The debt, part of the work avoidance is really they're going to have to talk about the holistic what's going on in government, and what they're doing is pointing at little bits and pieces, whether raise taxes, lower spending. Those are technical solutions. So really they need to stand back and really look at how we do government in general. That's more of an adaptive response to that particular problem that we're facing. That's a real brief overview of that. So going forward, what I'm inviting you into is thinking about what are the adaptive challenges we're facing. We know that people aren't coming to churches the way they used to. Maybe even we have to rethink the way we do church, the way we approach our congregations. We really have to step back and ask some bigger questions about what 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, faith communities might look like. So it's important that we always connect to our faithful core. It's not just about, filling our pews with members who write us checks every year. It's more about, who are we as Unitarian Universalists, and first of all, how do we stay true to that faithful core that we hold together? It's important that we know what that core is. I'm working with a congregation right now, and they're working with sort of this nebulous sort of core. They sort of think they know what it is, but if you really talk to people, they don't necessarily have the same ideas. They're not going to be able to move forward until they have a shared understanding of what they are and who they are in their community. It's also important to stand back and get up on the balcony and reassess our congregations. What's working, what's not working? What might we have to unbuild before we can rebuild for the future? Those of you who attended the Big Dogs Conference, that we had a little conference last spring that Mark Bernstein ran about for our churches that are sort of in between mid-size and large congregations. And part of any transition is letting go of something, learning how to do that, learning how to lead that kind of change. The other thing is to understand what our unique message is in the world. And we don't have to necessarily have a unique message as Unitarian Universalists, but what about your congregation? Most of you have been paying attention to what's been going up in Rochester with their Listen, Open, Serve that permeates everything they do. They had that lovely homecoming video that went viral on the internet. If you haven't had a chance to see it, just go to their Rochester website. The link's right on the homepage. Unitarian. I'm sorry, yes, First Unitarian of Rochester, because there is a Universalist church in Rochester. Thank you. I haven't met them yet, so as soon as I do, I can. But understanding what that unique message is. The other thing is really helping our congregations to become learning communities. We have to admit to ourselves that we used to have the answers, but we don't have the answers anymore. So how do we shift our own self-understanding from being the educated, brilliant, smart people, which we still are, but we're facing new challenges. So how can we develop the humility as a community to engage with being a learning community, with trying things and maybe making a mistake along the way? These are all things that we need our congregations to do. And the other thing that we're preaching, at least as district and regional staff, is to get together with one another, the other congregations in your district. And with today's technology, you can connect with congregations across the country. But you learn from one another way more than you'll ever learn from any of us. And so find ways to connect with one another. We're trying to provide cluster opportunities. I know that the CRUNY cluster has opportunities to come together. But look for ways to learn and connect with one another. So I want you to, in the spirit of the burnt over time period, think of this heritage that you have of creative responses to the crazy changes that we're seeing these days. And I'd like you to spend a few moments again chatting with the people next to you. If you want to shift and talk to some new people, that would be fine too. But just think about maybe share some of the creative responses that you might be doing or considering in your own congregation right now. I do want to share, before we break, some sources of hope that I have for our congregations. One is this idea of the energy that's happening around forming clusters and helping one another through our cluster relationships. I think that Dave talked about healthy congregations. This bringing healthy congregations into the St. Lawrence district, I think is going to be really, really helpful for you. And I encourage you to take that training when you can. There's one happening in Binghamton, I think the weekend after next, 2 weeks from today, I think, or 2 weeks from yesterday. And then we're also looking to train people to help you lead Harvest the Power, which is leadership training. And I know Jeff is going to be attending that training of trainers, so we'll schedule things around that. I also am excited about the idea of the Commission Lay Leader Program, helping the lay leaders be stronger and better and more grounded in Unitarian Universalism. I'm excited that people are looking to create intergenerational communities in their congregations. This is fabulous. I also am really excited about the Gathered Here initiative. At first I thought this was one of those dopey UUA programs. Not that we ever had any of those. But I got the chance to participate, not as a questioner, but as someone who's being asked these really deep questions about what's my core as a Unitarian Universalist, and what do I see our Unitarian, what's valuable and what's the important aspect of Unitarian Universalism for me and for our communities. And I really invite you to participate. I know they're looking for people to do these kinds of interviews and have congregational conversations, but even if, and Joan Van Beesler has information about that, if you want to grab her, and I really recommend that. But also to participate, just the chance to reflect in a deep way with another UU is a really wonderful experience. And the other thing that I'm really kind of excited about is this idea of rethinking membership. Right now we count members because our dues are based on how many members we have, so that's an important number. But it's also a number that creates anxiety in our congregations. And I'm guilty of saying, how many members do you have, right? Because it's sort of this tangible thing we can hold on to. But I think we're really starting to rethink this. There's this idea floating around about having dues, or APF, which is the money we give to the UU in the district, based on a percentage of budget rather than membership numbers. But it's just a different way of, if we have people that we don't, that are participating but don't sign the book for whatever reason, it may be a better way of counting. So anyway, those are sources of hope I have, and I hope to hear what your sources of hope are.